Are we on the brink of another conflict in the Caribbean? Reports are emerging that charges against former Cuban President Raul Castro are igniting a fierce debate within the Trump administration, with many believing these accusations are a deliberate attempt to create a pretext for military action against Cuba's communist regime. The situation is rapidly evolving, and the implications for regional security and global politics could be immense. Before we dive into the potential consequences, if you want to stay on top of everything happening in U.S. politics, hit that subscribe button right now and leave a like. It really helps this channel grow and allows us to bring you more in-depth analysis like this. Now, let's break down what's happening. The charges against Raul Castro and 5 other individuals come at a time of significantly renewed tensions between Havana and Washington. This isn't just a minor diplomatic spat. It's a dramatic escalation that has caught many by surprise. The context for these charges is crucial. They surfaced just days after a U.S. official, speaking anonymously to Axios, issued a veiled warning about Cuba's drone capabilities. This anonymous tip, while seemingly technical, has been interpreted by many as a signal, a potential justification for increased pressure, or even more drastic measures. The anonymous official's warning about Cuban drones might sound like a niche security concern, but in the complex and often opaque world of international relations, especially concerning Cuba, such statements carry significant weight. For decades, the relationship between the United States and Cuba has been fraught with suspicion, economic sanctions, and periods of intense diplomatic frost. Under the Trump administration, there was a clear shift away from the Obama-era outreach, with a renewed focus on isolating the Cuban government. These new charges and the anonymous warnings seem to fit a pattern of increased pressure. The question then becomes, what exactly are these charges against Raul Castro? While the specifics are still emerging and the full details are not yet public, the mere fact that a former head of state is facing accusations, especially at this tense juncture, suggests a gravity that cannot be ignored. In the past, allegations of corruption or human rights abuses have been used as leverage by foreign powers. But when coupled with thinly veiled security threats, the narrative shifts dramatically. It begins to sound less like a judicial process and more like a political maneuver. The analysis here is critical. If these charges are indeed a pretext, as many suspect, then the ultimate goal is likely to justify a more forceful U.S. policy. This could range from an intensification of economic sanctions, further diplomatic isolation, to the most extreme scenario, military intervention. The idea of U.S. military action in Cuba, while seemingly a relic of the Cold War, cannot be entirely dismissed given the current geopolitical climate and the rhetoric being employed. The historical precedent, however grim, is there, and any administration considering such a path would weigh it against decades of history and the potential for widespread regional destabilization. Who is affected by this? Primarily, the Cuban people will bear the brunt of any escalation, facing potential economic hardship and instability. The wider Caribbean region could also be drawn into the conflict, with unpredictable consequences for neighboring nations. For the United States, a military engagement in Cuba would have profound domestic and international repercussions, potentially alienating allies, igniting anti-American sentiment globally, and incurring significant human and financial costs. What are the possible outcomes? On one hand, a diplomatic solution, however unlikely in the current climate, could de-escalate tensions. This would involve dialogue, a potential lifting of sanctions, and a path towards normalization. On the other hand, if the administration is indeed building a case for military action, we could see a rapid and dangerous escalation. This could involve targeted strikes, a naval blockade, or even a full-scale invasion. The anonymous warning about drones, for instance, could be used to justify preemptive actions under the guise of national security. The U.S. foreign policy establishment is a complex ecosystem of advisors, intelligence agencies, and political figures, each with their own agendas and assessments of threats. The anonymous leak to Axios is a classic example of how information is strategically deployed to shape public opinion and influence policy decisions. It allows certain actors within the administration to float ideas or warnings without direct attribution, testing the waters and gauging the reaction. The charges against Raul Castro, whether legitimate or manufactured, serve to amplify the perceived threat from Cuba. This narrative of an aggressive, destabilizing regime is precisely what would be needed to garner domestic and international support for a more assertive U.S. stance. It's a well-worn playbook in international relations, and one that appears to be in full effect regarding Cuba. The potential for miscalculation is extremely high. In an era of complex geopolitical alliances and rapid information flows, a decisive military move, particularly one based on questionable pretexts, could have far-reaching and unintended consequences. It could unite disparate opposition forces within Cuba, galvanize international condemnation, and even provoke a response from other global powers who have strategic interests in the region. So what do you think about this? Are these charges against Raul Castro a genuine concern, or a smokescreen for a U.S. military intervention? Drop your opinion in the comments below. I read every single one. The coming days and weeks will be critical in determining the trajectory of U.S.-Cuba relations. The events unfolding are a stark reminder of how quickly geopolitical landscapes can shift and how easily rhetoric can pave the way for conflict. We will continue to monitor this situation closely and bring you the latest developments.